Only after death did I learn that my husband Jiang Yaro was the male protagonist of a cultivation novel, destined to reach divine transformation at 20, undergo heavenly tribulation at 30, then ascend to immortality, becoming a living legend. As for me, I was his famously devoted first wife from the rumors. We grew up together, married young, and shared such profound affection that our love story became celebrated throughout the land. But when I was reborn and returned to being 18 years old, when my stepsister snatched away the marriage contract between me and Jiang Yao, I didn't stop her. Instead, I chose to marry Jiang Yao's older brother, Jiang Cheng. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Yuqing, have you lost your mind? Give the marriage contract back to your sister at once. In the main hall, mother scolded my younger sister Lin Yuqing. I snapped out of my thoughts. The Lin and Jiang families each had twin sons and daughters, and marriage contracts were arranged between them since childhood. I was betrothed to Jiang Yao, the second son of the Jiang family, while my sister was promised to Jiang Cheng, the eldest son. Just now, mother was about to hand the two marriage certificates to me and my younger sister separately, but my sister snatched my marriage certificate away. Hearing mother's scolding, she argued excitedly. I don't want to marry Jiang Cheng, I want to marry Jiang Yao. Mother's face turned red with anger. She pointed at her sister with her finger and said angrily, "You wretched girl, don't you know Jiang Yao is?" Halfway through, she glanced at me warily and left the words unspoken. I sighed inwardly and finished the sentence for my mother. Jiang Yao is trash. At the age of 10, Jiang Yao followed his clan's disciples to a secret realm for training, where he was unfortunately ambushed. When found, Jiang Yao had lost all his cultivation. He had refined qi at 3 and built his foundation at 7, originally a 1 in 10,000 genius, but after this calamity, he became completely crippled. No matter how many heavenly and earthly treasures the Jiang family invested, Jiang Yao's cultivation still showed no signs of improvement. Mother pulled my sister aside and whispered, "The next heir of the Jiang family will only be Jiang Cheng. Why can't you understand this, child?" I lowered my gaze. Even after being reborn, the bitterness in my heart remained unchanged. From the moment I was born, my mother was in poor health, so she sent me to live with my grandfather. Strangely enough, she recovered not long after. A year later, she gave birth to my younger sister, Lin Yuqing. She became convinced that I was her curse, while my sister was her lucky star. Even though my talent and cultivation were both superior to my younger sister's, mother still treated me as an outsider. Showering all her affection on my sister, Jiang Yao was the second son, and by seniority, it should have been my sister who married him. But mother pleaded with father to change the marriage arrangement. My sister couldn't endure hardship, so naturally, she had to marry Jiang Cheng, the next heir of the Jiang family. As for whether I'd face scorn for marrying a good-for-nothing, she never considered it. My younger sister directly exposed our mother's hidden thoughts. "Mother, aren't you just worried that Jiang Yao is a useless man and I'd suffer if I married him?" Mother looked at me awkwardly. The younger sister continued shouting, "No matter how capable Jiang Cheng is, he's just a minor heir at best. But Jiang Yao is a once-in-a-generation genius." Hearing this, I clenched my fist slightly. Why was my sister so certain? Unless she, like me, had also been reborn. Mother looked half convinced, half doubtful. "But isn't he?" My younger sister patted her chest and assured her, "Mother, when have I ever lied to you? I insist on marrying Jiang Yao." Unable to persuade her, mother turned to me and changed her approach. "Ruochu, your sister cares for you and doesn't want you to suffer. You should marry Jiang Cheng instead." Her words left no room for discussion. I obediently nodded. After leaving the main hall, my grandmother sent a maid to summon me. She held me close with heartache. "Ruochu, it's your grandmother's fault for being useless, not even able to decide a marriage for you," I murmured gloomily. "This is fine as it is. At least Ruochu can spend more time with grandmother." I did not lie. In my past life, after I married Jiang Yao, he underwent his tribulation at the age of 30. The lightning tribulation he summoned nearly destroyed half the city. Both the Lin and Jiang families were affected, with countless casualties, and he ascended to immortality on the spot. As his wife, bound by contract, I was swept into this completely unfamiliar world with him before I could even react. At that time, my grandparents were critically ill, worried about her. I longed to return to the mortal realm to care for the elderly, but Jiang Yao said, "Ruochu, you're too indecisive. Those who cultivate the Tao should maintain purity of mind and not be burdened by such worldly concerns." Jiang Yao was truly free from worldly attachments. he had countless enemies. And at the age of 25, both his father and maternal relatives perished at the hands of his foes. Only his elder brother Jiang Cheng, whom he regarded as a rival, still remained alive in this world. As for the Jiang family, he truly had no lingering affections left. But I was different. My grandmother, in her kindness, raised me together with my grandfather. I should have fulfilled my filial duties, but in the end, because of Jiang Yao, I couldn't even attend to them at their bedside. It became my lifelong regret. In this life, I refused to live like this. Ruochu, a voice called out beside me. I snapped back to reality to find Jiang Yao sitting next to me, though I hadn't noticed when he arrived. To be fair, he was exceptionally outstanding, even with his cultivation completely lost. His unruly temperament and handsome features still captivated countless young women. Now, Jiang Yao's face bore the marks of a fight. He sat gloomily beside me, offering only a brief greeting before sinking into silence. I knew he had been bullied again. After his cultivation was completely destroyed, many young masters from noble families looked down on him and often mocked him. In the past, my heart ached for him. Without waiting for him to speak, I would indignantly scold those noble young masters on his behalf and even spent my own money to gift him countless top-grade spiritual medicines. But now, I have seen through the truth. Young masters from noble families aren't that idle. They're too busy improving their strength and competing for family succession rights to spare time for ostracizing others. It was Jiang Yao who provoked them first. He declared, "Your cultivation, built solely by piling up miraculous elixirs, can't withstand a single blow." He vowed, "One day, I'll trample all you arrogant noble disciples beneath my feet." Talking such nonsense. No wonder you got beaten up. Seeing my unusual silence, Jiang Yao grew somewhat anxious. He lowered his head and pretended to be aggrieved, saying, "Ruo Chu, do you also think I'm worthless?" I shook my head. "I've never thought that way." Jiang Yao muttered to himself, "If only I were stronger. Those aristocratic disciples merely have more elixirs and treasures than I do." I sneered. Jiang Yao was still behaving this way. He wanted to obtain elixirs from me, yet wouldn't take the initiative to ask. He wanted me to willingly offer them, then reluctantly accept them as if doing me a favor. Unfortunately, I refused to play along with his expectations. When Jiang Yao needed comfort, I was always there for him. When Jiang Yao needed elixirs, I dodged the subject with evasive answers. In the end, Jiang Yao grew restless and took his leave with a darkened expression. Before long, the servant came to report. The younger sister intercepted Jiang Yao at the back gate. Seeing his injuries, she not only comforted him but even offered him medicinal pills. She said, "Jiang Yao, my sister may not understand your feelings, but I know your pain. If you ever need pills in the future, just ask me." Jiang Yao had intended to accept everything without question. Hearing his sister's words, he suppressed his anger for a long while before finally spitting out a single word, "Scram." I nearly laughed out loud. Having been reborn, his sister only knew Jiang Yao was a genius but remained unaware of his strong sense of pride. Such help would not only fail to win Jiang Yao's favor, it would only breed resentment. The next afternoon, I appeared at the auction house in Yunfu City. From what I remembered, in my past life, after Jiang Yao took countless spirit stones from me, he showed up at the auction and spent extravagantly to obtain a demon core. This demon core appeared ordinary at first glance, but in truth, it concealed immense spiritual power within. Not only did it heal Jiang Yao's hidden injuries, but it also helped him rapidly advance his cultivation. Now, the spirit stone is in my hands. Then this demon core shall naturally be mine as well. Just as I expected, the demon core was quickly put up for auction, with a starting bid of 500 spirit stones, due to its extremely dull appearance. Many people didn't pay much attention to it, thus, I smoothly won the bid. As I was leaving the auction house, I was stopped by Jiang Yao. He looked at me with eager anticipation. "Ruochu, was it you who won that demon core at the auction?" I didn't deny it. The auction house required family authentication for spirit stone payments, so Jiang Yao knowing wasn't surprising, but judging by his expression, he wanted to reap without sowing. Sure enough, Jiang Yao's next words were, "This demon core may appear ordinary at first glance, but it actually holds hidden depths. It would be of great help to me. Ruochu, I need it." He was waiting for me to offer it willingly, but I was no longer the gullible fool from my past life who would foot the bill without question. I gave a meaningful glance to the maid beside me. The maid stepped forward and scolded, "Young Master Jiang, if you need it, go buy it yourself. My lady hasn't even stepped into the Jiang family's door. Yet you're already eyeing her belongings." The maid's intention was to scold Jiang Yaro for being shameless, but Jiang Yaro interpreted it as having another, more ambiguous meaning. He scratched his head. Ruochu, I was too impatient. I shouldn't have spoiled the surprise you prepared for me in advance. After he left, the maid widened her eyes. Are all the Jiang family members this shameless? I was amused by her words, and when I turned my head, I met a face similar to Jiang Yaro's, but even more striking. It was Jiang Cheng, Jiang Yaro's half-brother. I quickly composed myself and stepped in front of the maid, offering an apology. Young Master Jiang, the maid meant no harm. Please don't take it to heart. I didn't know much about Jiang Cheng. The only impression I had was the rumor that he was kind and courteous, yet a trace of vigilance remained. Could it be that Jiang Cheng, like Jiang Yao, had come for the elixir, unexpectedly? Jiang Cheng produced an ornate box. Inside lay a 5-elements elixir. He handed it to me and said gently, that demon core contains profound spiritual power, but it's difficult to control. The 5-spirit pill can neutralize its properties. I asked in surprise, why give it to me? Jiang Cheng replied, isn't it only natural to treat one's betrothed well? Jiang Cheng knew the marriage contract had been altered. He seemed to read my thoughts and said earnestly, Ruochu, I'm truly happy. From the very beginning, it was you I wanted to marry. This time, it was my turn to freeze. Looking up to meet Jiang Cheng's gaze, the tenderness in his eyes appeared genuine. Yet in my past life, our paths had barely crossed. Jiang Cheng doted on his younger sister, yet he was particularly cautious around me. Since when did this start? I couldn't figure it out, so I simply stopped thinking about it. Upon returning home, however, I heard from the servants that my sister had quarreled with our father. When I reached the study, I happened to hear father's furious roar, Lin Yuqing, how dare you take the premium elixirs from my treasury and give them to Jiang Yao? You want to change the marriage contract, I'll let you have your way, but now, before even crossing the threshold, you're rushing to please a good-for-nothing. Where does that leave my dignity? My younger sister stubbornly retorted, Father, Jiang Yaro is not a good-for-nothing. She stamped her foot in frustration and stormed out of the study. When she saw me, she put on that haughty look again. Sister, don't get too smug. You may laugh at me now, but in the future, I'll be the wife of a cultivation genius. By then, you'll be the one begging me. She kept murmuring white moonlight under her breath. I became increasingly certain she, like me, had been reborn, but I didn't remind her. Being the white moonlight isn't as easy as it seems. My sister and Jiang Yaro grew increasingly closer. In front of my sister, Jiang Yaro played the role of an unruly genius. Even when accepting gifts, he'd only do so if my sister begged him, never lowering himself to ask. At first, he didn't show much kindness. Later on, perhaps because one becomes more amiable when receiving favors, Jiang Yao's attitude toward his sister improved significantly. My sister couldn't wait to boast to me, Lin Ruochu. Jiang Yaro is already deeply in love with me. I'm warning you, stay away from him. She didn't know that Jiang Yaro showed a completely different side when he was with me. Ruochu, Lin Yuqing is truly annoying. Idle all day and only knows how to pester me, Jiang Yaro complained irritably. I remained silent for a while. Just yesterday, he had accepted a qi-inducing pill worth 2,000 spirit stones from my sister. Now he's secretly slandering. How hypocritical. Seeing that I ignored him, Jiang Yaro anxiously added, Ruochu, don't take it to heart. I only told you because I was afraid you'd get jealous. I shook my head. No, you should treat Yuqing better. Jiang Yaro immediately retorted. Lin Yuqing isn't even worthy of a single strand of your hair. Ruochu, you will be my only wife in this lifetime. It seems he was unaware that the marriage arrangement had been changed. But Jiang Cheng clearly knew. Why was Jiang Yaro kept in the dark about this? I voiced my doubts to my grandmother. Grandmother patted my hand, her expression cold. That day, Yuqing insisted on switching marriages, so your mother handed both marriage contracts to the Jiang family. If Jiang Yaro still doesn't know about this to this day, it can only mean he cares nothing for this marriage. He never even bothered to open the marriage contract. Grandmother then handed me several sheets of paper. I unfolded it to look. It was actually Jiang Yaro's IOU. The total came to 30,000 spirit stones. Grandmother sneered. Jiang Yaro has been running up debts outside, telling people, I have no money, but my future wife is the Jiang family's young miss. I drew a sharp breath. Jiang Yaro was far more shameless than I had imagined. Soon, the wedding day arrived. My sister and I were married on the same day, setting out from the Lin family in phoenix-adorned sedan chairs to reach the Jiang family. However, the betrothal gifts for my sister and me were quite different. Beyond the standard dowry prepared by the Jiang family, Jiang Cheng had added countless treasures of gold and silver, a truly extravagant bridal procession stretching for miles, making an exceptionally grand display. In comparison, the dowry for the younger sister was rather meager. She draped the bridal veil over her head and snorted heavily. "Sister, what does it matter if your dowry is more lavish? No matter how promising Jiang Cheng is, he's merely the Jiang family's heir. But Jiang Yarrow is different. He's destined to be one in 10,000 geniuses of the cultivation world." My younger sister boarded the Phoenix sedan chair, and we left the house one after the other, but as soon as the main gate opened, we were greeted not by a joyous wedding party. Instead, it was the moneylenders of Yunfu City, holding promissory notes. They demanded, "Miss Lin Ruochu, your husband owes us 30,000 spirit stones, and the debt remains unpaid." Brothers don't want to ruin a perfectly good day either, but there are extenuating circumstances. "Miss Lin Ruochu, how about settling the bill first?" A derisive snort came from the younger sister's sedan chair. The surrounding crowd buzzed with discussion. "I heard Lin Ruochu isn't favored by the Lin family. On her wedding day, debt collectors even came demanding payment in public. How utterly humiliating. To be honest, this marriage should never have happened. What decent person racks up 30,000 spirit stones in debt before marriage, then declares his bride-to-be should repay it? Shameless beyond belief." My sister's mocking voice carried from afar. "No rush for me to marry, elder sister. You'd better clear those debts first." I closed my eyes and sighed. It's finally come to this. Just as I was about to lift the carriage curtain to step out, grandmother's authoritative voice came from behind. "You only said you're Ruochu's husband, but didn't give a name. Speak clearly now. Who exactly is the one owing these 30,000 spirit stones?" My sister snapped impatiently. "Who else could it be? Of course it's Jiang Yao." The bald leader answered with absolute certainty. My sister abruptly flung open the carriage curtain. "Who did you say?" Her voice even cracked from sheer excitement. Grandmother sneered coldly. "Yet 10 days ago, the marriage contracts were exchanged. Ruochu was to marry Jiang Cheng, the eldest son of the Jiang family, while Yuqing was to wed the second son." Mother's expression changed as well. She shot me a resentful glare before striding forward to demand, "Was there some mistake?" The group exchanged glances and produced the IOU as evidence. "Here's the proof," a written agreement signed by Jiang Yarrow in black and white, bearing his fingerprint. Besides, the Jiang family's eldest son comes from a wealthy maternal family. How could he possibly lack a mere 30,000 spirit stones? This time, with both witnesses and material evidence present, there was no room for denial. The younger sister couldn't accept it. Gritting her teeth, she spoke up. "I don't believe it. Let me out first. I want to confront Jiang Yarrow in front of everyone." The lenders don't care about that. Every sin has its origin, every debt its debtor. They let my sedan chair pass, but stopped my sisters, insisting on those 30,000 spirit stones. The noise gradually faded away. The maidservant attending her patted her chest in relief. Good thing the second young lady insisted on changing grooms. This time, she really shot herself in the foot. I neither confirmed nor denied it. Soon, I arrived at the Jiang residence. A pair of warm hands steadied me, gently calling out, "My lady." It was Jiang Cheng. My ears inexplicably grew warm. He carried me across the fire basin and into the main hall of the Jiang residence. The head of the Jiang family married 2 wives, but the first wife passed away from a cold after giving birth to Jiang Cheng, and the second died in childbirth. Now, only he remained seated in the main hall. The matchmaker stood beside him, loudly announcing, "First bow to heaven and earth, second bow to parents, bow to each other as husband and wife," suppressing the fluttering in my heart. I gazed at Jiang Cheng's face through the bridal veil. He is my husband in this lifetime. Just as I was lost in thought, chaos erupted outside the door. Jiang Yao, dressed in wedding attire, barged in with a dark expression, disregarding everyone's attempts to stop him. Behind him followed my sister, who had lifted her bridal veil and looked utterly disheveled. "Ruochu." Jiang Yarrow finally realized that the person he was going to marry wasn't me. He rushed forward, trying to take my hand. Jiang Cheng immediately stopped him. "How dare you, Jiang Yao? Ruochu is my newlywed wife and your sister-in-law. Show some respect." With his golden core stage cultivation, he effortlessly subdued Jiang Yao. Jiang Yao still refused to give up, staring at me intently as he asked with measured words, "Ruochu, you lied to me." How utterly persistent. With a sigh in my heart, I had no choice but to reply helplessly, "The marriage contract was altered 10 days ago. How many times have I reminded you to treat Yuqing well? How can you accuse me of deception?" Jiang Yao's eyes reddened. He glared at me viciously. then turned his resentful gaze toward Jiang Cheng. Fine, you look down on me, all of you look down on me. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west, never mock the youth for their poverty. This grudge of today, I'll remember it. My heart gave a sudden lurch. Jiang Yaro was vindictive, those who offended him never met a good end. Just as I was about to speak, Jiang Cheng stepped in front of me. If you've got the guts, come at me. My heart suddenly warmed. At that moment, the group of moneylenders relentlessly pursued him, squeezing in through the door. The leader, holding the IOU, chased after Jiang Yao, shouting, Jiang Yao, quickly pay back these 30,000 spirit stones. Jiang Yao's face stiffened, and he looked up at the Jiang family patriarch. However, he had ruined 2 engagements in a row and made the entire Yunfu city laugh at the Jiang family. So the Jiang family patriarch had long been utterly disappointed in him. Jiang Yao turned to look at his younger sister. He pleaded in a humble voice, Yuqing, please help me. I didn't watch the ensuing farce. The crowd ushered me and Jiang Cheng into the bridal chamber. And everything around us fell into complete silence. I'm a bit nervous. After all, I'm not really familiar with Jiang Cheng. But when the bridal veil was carefully lifted, and Jiang Cheng looked at me with gentle warmth, I suddenly felt at peace. This is my husband in this lifetime. He poured me a cup of wine but was in no hurry for the wedding night, instead handing me a cultivation manual. I was somewhat surprised. What's this? Jiang Cheng replied calmly, in my youth. I studied under old Master Lin and once heard him lament that your cultivation talent was no less than Jiang Yao's at the time. Only, you were later held back by trivial matters. I thought for a long time, my wife possesses such talent, what I should do is not to keep her as a sheltered woman, but to let her continue to be a genius. This cultivation technique will help you solidify your foundation. My eyes welled up, having lived 2 lives. Even my loving grandparents' greatest wish was to entrust me to a good husband, only River City. He said he hoped I would continue to shine brilliantly. I said solemnly, thank you. A few days later, my sister and I returned home together. I heard that on that day, my younger sister pleaded with our mother and finally gathered 30,000 spirit stones to pay off the loan sharks. With reddened eyes, she then performed the wedding ceremony with Jiang Yao. Jiang Cheng and Jiang Yao had long since established separate residences. These past few days, I haven't seen her. Now that we meet again, my sister's face clearly shows exhaustion. Yet before me, she refused to admit defeat. Lin Ruochu, don't get cocky. Just because there was a mishap at the wedding doesn't mean I'm beneath you. One day, you'll come begging to me. Jiang Yao clearly thought the same way, intercepting me privately and trying to take my hand, but I dodged his grasp. His expression darkened. Ruochu, must it be like this between us? I found it unbelievable. Jiang Yao, I'm already your sister-in-law. Can't you show some propriety? Jiang Yao muttered to himself. Propriety? Ha, what fucking propriety? Gritting his teeth, he looked at me. Lin Ruochu, I'm giving you one last chance. Leave Jiang Cheng and come back to me. I gave him 3 words. In your dreams. Jiang Yao turned and left, clearly holding a grudge against me in his heart. Unfortunately, this matter also came to Lin Yuqing's attention. She made a huge scene at home. Mother seized the opportunity to reprimand me. Ruochu, you've let me down so much. That's your sister's husband. How could you be so shameless? I couldn't take it anymore. Mother, you've gone too far. Back then, it was my sister who insisted on marrying Jiang Yao. Now that I'm being harassed, suddenly it's my fault. Could you be any more biased? I had never openly defied her before. Now that the truth was laid bare, all Mother could do was point a trembling finger at me, speechless with rage. But soon enough, they had bigger concerns than me, because Jiang Yao had taken a concubine just 1 month after his wedding. The concubine, named Liu Ruyan, was an alchemist Jiang Yao met during his travels. With a cultivation level at the golden core stage, her temperament was notably fiery. Why do I know so much about this? Because she was the first addition to Jiang Yao's harem. That's right, the first one. In my past life, I was indeed Jiang Yao's only legitimate wife. But he's the male lead in a cultivation novel. How could he possibly stop at just 1 woman? By the time he ascended to immortality, he'd already amassed a harem of 7 or 8. The reason I became the white moonlight in everyone's hearts was simply because I could endure more and was more magnanimous toward others. In the end, I endured until my spirit withered away, leaving behind only a good reputation. But my younger sister couldn't endure it. It had only been 3 short days since the concubine was taken in. Yet my sister had already clashed repeatedly with Liu Ruyan. She cried and pleaded for our father to stand up for her. Yet with Liu Ruyan's help, Jiang Yaro, who was once a good-for-nothing, somehow regained his foundation establishment cultivation in just 1 month. Seeing this, our father could only console my sister. Men, after all, often have 3 wives and 4 concubines. It's perfectly normal. At the same time, Jiang Cheng found an elderly man for me. He said with great solemnity, Ruo Chu, this elder is a divine transformation stage sword cultivator. Acknowledging him as your master will greatly aid your cultivation progress. I knew Jiang Cheng had gone to great lengths for me. I immediately knelt down and acknowledged the elder as my master. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Jiang Yaro took in 2 more concubines while simultaneously breaking through to the divine transformation stage. At the age of 20, the title of genius was once again bestowed upon him. His younger sister grew increasingly proud. In contrast, Jiang Cheng and I kept a very low profile. The head of the Jiang family was gravely ill, and Jiang Cheng took over the family. However, apart from an advantage in wealth, we seemed to have no advantage compared to Jiang Yaro. At grandmother's birthday banquet, Jiang Yaro stopped me. He asked with high spirits, Lin Ruochu, do you regret not marrying me back then? To be honest, I don't regret it. I'm now at the divine transformation stage too. On par with Jiang Yaro's strength, I've just been hiding it well. What is there to regret? But looking at my sister's haggard face and the trace of demonic energy flashing in Jiang Yaro's eyes, I avoided answering. Jiang Yaro thought I was showing fear and grew even more smug. My sister also gloated in front of me. Lin Ruochu, there are no regrets in this world. Thankfully I had good judgment back then to snatch up Jiang Yaro, this rising star. Now, it's too late for regrets. I lowered my gaze in silence. After returning to the residence, I told Jiang Cheng about the matter and spoke with deep concern. When Jiang Yaro recovered to the foundation establishment stage within a month, I already felt suspicious. Now it's confirmed, his foundation is indeed unstable. Jiang Yaro is arrogant by nature. If this continues, I fear what awaits him isn't ascension to immortality, but a descent into demonic deviation. Jiang Cheng pulled me into his embrace. Over the course of 2 years together, I gradually developed genuine feelings for him, and our relationship grew increasingly intimate. Only then did I realize Jiang Cheng hadn't been lying. In his previous life, he had truly been deeply in love with me, but circumstances beyond his control led him to marry my sister instead through a twist of fate. But Jiang Cheng was an extremely responsible man. From the day my sister married into his family, he buried his secret affection deep in his heart, devoted himself wholeheartedly to her, and kept his distance from me. In this lifetime, he finally got his wish and couldn't wait to shower me with all his affection. Ruochu, don't worry, like me, he has concealed his cultivation level well. With our master's guidance, we had both long since reached the divine transformation stage. We simply chose to live humbly, never flaunting our strength. Jiang Cheng said firmly, if that day truly comes, I'll face it by your side. Hearing this, I finally felt relieved. Another 10 years passed, and the power dynamics in Yunfu City underwent significant changes. The cultivation world saw a surge of talented individuals. Of the several prominent aristocratic families that once stood strong, only the Lin and Jiang families remained. The others had long since declined and been absorbed. The Lin family was also having a hard time. Father was repeatedly targeted. The reason for all this was Jiang Yaro. Over the past decade, Jiang Yaro had progressed from the divine transformation stage all the way to the tribulation crossing stage. His cultivation progress was astonishingly rapid, unmatched by anyone. While drawing widespread attention, he also attracted numerous enemies. For instance, when competing with others for heavenly treasures, instead of invoking the Jiang family's prestige, he would claim his wife was the heiress of the Lin family. Not only that, he also had a penchant for playing the hero to rescue beauties. Over the past decade, the number of concubines in Jiang Yao's harem skyrocketed from single digits to double digits. Many of them were even married women. Compared to his previous life, it was simply surpassing all previous excesses. At first, his younger sister still tried to stop him. In the end, she tragically realized that apart from holding the title of the principal wife, she was nothing. Jiang Yaro respected her, so the harem respected her. But if Jiang Yaro looked down on her, the days of scheming with her sister and a group of beauties would be unbearable. From the very beginning, she mocked me. In the end, she tried to beg my mother to persuade me to divorce Jiang Cheng and remarry Jiang Yaro, but soon, she gave up the idea. Because she was pregnant, this was Jiang Yaro's first child. He placed great importance on this matter, sparing no expense to host a lavish banquet at the Lin family estate. Both Jiang Cheng and I were among the invited guests, but Jiang Yaro had made far too many enemies over the years. On the day of the banquet, the Lin residence was surrounded. The carved railings and painted beams turned into crumbling walls, as terrified guests fled in all directions, leaving only the vengeful enemies who watched like tigers eyeing their prey. My sister, her belly swollen, clutched Jiang Yao's hand in fear and asked in panic, "What should we do?" I saw Jiang Yao frown. I'm afraid even he didn't know what to do. Logically speaking, in his previous life, Jiang Yao had already ascended to immortality before this banquet, proactively eliminating all his enemies, and would never have been surrounded by them. But perhaps it was the influence of that arranged marriage swap. Jiang Yao entered the transcending tribulation stage, repeatedly attempting to break through his cultivation realm and ascend to immortality, yet he consistently failed to grasp the proper method. Now, before ascending to immortality, he had no means to deal with all his enemies. Not to mention that among them were several strong cultivators also at the tribulation transcendent stage. If Jiang Yao confronted them head-on, it would mean certain death. Dozens of enemies stood blocking Jiang Yao's path. Each of them had their own justified grievances. Jiang Yao, years ago you killed my brother and stole my sister-in-law. If I don't avenge this, I'll be failing my brother. Jiang Yao, back in the secret realm. You slaughtered dozens of my fellow disciples just to seize the spirit pearl grass. I'll tear you limb from limb to appease their departed souls. Jiang Yao, beads of cold sweat broke out on Jiang Yao's forehead. He looked around, the dark aura surrounding him growing increasingly dense. I heard him mutter to himself, "No, I absolutely cannot die here. I will ascend and become an immortal." A sudden sense of foreboding rose in my heart. Before I could stop him, I saw him push my sister forward. His hands became like blades, slicing open her womb to extract the fetus. Ah, my sister's piercing scream. She stared at Jiang Yao in disbelief, crying out in accusation, "Are you insane? That's your own child." The next instant, heaven and earth fell silent together. Dark clouds gathered above Jiang Yao's head, lightning flickering within them. Jiang Yao had sacrificed his own flesh and blood to forcibly break through his cultivation realm. Now, with half a foot already in the great ascension stage, the surrounding enemies sensed the terrifying aura and scattered in retreat. How could Jiang Yao let them leave? With a single move, he unleashed a storm of blood and carnage. The enemy didn't even have time to flee before being reduced to scattered flesh and blood raining down upon the ground. Not a single intact corpse remained, yet Jiang Yao remained unsatisfied. Having only half-stepped into the Mahayana stage didn't mean he had already ascended to immortality. The heavenly Tao deemed that what he had sacrificed was still far from enough. Jiang Yao murmured, "Not enough, still not enough." He laughed maniacally. "If it's not enough, then sacrifice everyone." Dark energy veiled his eyes. Jiang Yao has ultimately fallen into demonhood, a massive formation, centered around the Lin family, unfurled beneath everyone's feet. He sought the flesh and blood of all present to aid his ascension to immortality. "Stop it." Unable to endure any longer, I stepped forward to stop him. Jiang Yao slowly turned his head to look at me. "Lin Ruochu." His gaze fell on Jiang Cheng beside me, then back to me, his eyes filled with resentment. "Lin Ruochu, how dare you show your face before me?" At this moment, Jiang Yao was already under the control of his inner demons. Jiang Cheng moved to step forward, but I stopped him. "Go destroy his formation, I'll handle things here." Jiang Cheng left without hesitation. I confronted Jiang Yao. He looked at me, recalling the past. "Lin Ruochu, do you know, the person I despise most is you. Back then, you kept saying you liked me, but in the end, didn't you just abandon me too and marry Jiang Cheng? What's the difference between you and them? You're all just snobs." But then, his expression shifted to one of sorrow. "Why don't you like me, Ruochu? Come back to me. I'm willing to give you another chance. You wanted to be the official wife, didn't you? I'll divorce Lin Yuqing and marry you again. How about that? The child she bore means nothing to me. I want you to bear my child." His lover-like murmurs sent chills down my spine. Without hesitation, I drew my life-bound sword and pointed its gleaming edge at Jiang Yao. "Enough talk, taste my blade." I leapt forward, the runes on my sword flashing as several thick bolts of lightning snaked down like vipers, enveloping Jiang Yao. At first, Jiang Yao paid it no mind. He intended to casually take it on, but when the heavenly thunder truly struck him, Jiang Yao suddenly realized something was wrong. Bang! He was completely defenseless, directly blasted away, and landed sprawled on the ground in utter disarray. Most of his bones were broken, his meridians destroyed. And even the simple act of regulating his breath became excruciatingly difficult. He stared at me in shock. Lin Ruochu, you're actually at the tribulation transcendent stage. Why? I should clearly be stronger than you, I sneered coldly. You did indeed half-step into the Mahayana realm. Too bad you got there by forcibly sacrificing your own flesh and blood. With such an unstable foundation, what's the damn use of being one realm higher than me? Steady and solid progress is the true way to success. All my strength comes not from elixirs nor from flesh and blood sacrifices. It is honed stroke by stroke under my master's rigorous guidance. When it comes to foundation, I stand firm as a rock. In terms of realm, I am no less than him. Without giving Jiang Yao a chance to catch his breath, I stirred my divine sense. Even fiercer and more violent heavenly thunder enveloped Jiang Yao. The entire cloud-floating city trembled in response. Bang! The light faded away. The once invincible Jiang Yao lay sprawled on the ground in utter disarray, clinging to life by a thread. He looked at me, his expression suddenly shifting. How did I end up like this? Lin Ruochu. Aren't you just a pretty vase? How did you suddenly reach the tribulation transcendent stage? Why haven't I ascended to immortality yet? Seeing this, I understood Jiang Yao from my past life had returned. Ruyan, Linga, Xiaohong. He searched for each member of his harem, only to find they had long been trapped by his own formation and were now on the brink of death. In the end, he had no choice but to place his last hope in me, coaxing patiently, Ruochu, how did you become like this? You are my only rightful wife, the white moonlight in everyone's hearts. How could you go on such a killing spree? After years of sword cultivation, I'm no longer the pushover I used to be. Hearing this, I immediately pointed my sword at his vital point, looking down at him as I demanded, are these your last words? Now that you've said your piece, it's time for you to die. Jiang Yao roared, I'm the protagonist of this cultivation novel. How dare you, alas. The latter half of the sentence was left unfinished. His head rolled with a thud on the ground, his eyes wide open in shock. Then, the dark clouds dispersed, and the heavenly thunder vanished. What protagonist of a cultivation novel? Before absolute power, you too shall become a ghost beneath my hand. Ah. Her sister had her fetus cut out and fell into a brief coma. When she woke again and looked down, she met Jiang Yao's bare skull and let out a scream, clutching the filthy head to her chest. Her eyes vacant, she muttered to herself, how could this happen? Aren't you the male lead of a cultivation novel? Aren't you the one in a million genius? I was counting on you to become the white moonlight. Gone, everything's gone. She seemed utterly deranged. At the same time, Jiang Cheng finished clearing the array left by Jiang Yao, frowned as he glanced at his younger brother's corpse, and sighed, alas, he brought this upon himself. Jiang Yao perished. His enemies were also slaughtered by his own hand. After Jiang Cheng and I finished handling the funeral arrangements, we were about to leave. My mother stopped me. For years, she had flaunted my sister and Jiang Yao's status before prominent families, yet also earned much disdain due to Jiang Yao's capricious methods. Now, my sister had gone mad, and her son-in-law was dead. At last, she realized there was still an eldest daughter. The mother staggered toward me. This white-haired woman apologizing to me for the first time. Ruochu. Before, I was wrong. I had no desire to argue with her, but my heart remained unmoved. Pushing her hand away, I spoke with polite detachment. Mother, mind your words. Mother's eyes suddenly dimmed. Another 20 years passed. Grandfather and grandmother passed away. This time, I stayed by their side, extending their lives by 10 years to make up for the time I had missed before. Neither of us had any regrets. Not only that, Jiang Cheng and I also had a child, named Jiang Yu. On the night he came of age, Jiang Cheng tossed the token symbolizing the Jiang family headship to him, then grabbed me and ran. Jiang Yu called out from behind, annoyed, Dad, Mom, where are you going? Bang! Dark clouds gathered, and thunder rumbled across the sky. I replied with a beaming smile, your father and I are ascending to immortality, off to explore another world.